Maria Crooks is a Calgary storyteller, playwright, actor, and singer. She is interested in myths, legends, and folk tales from Africa and the Caribbean. She has participated in storytelling events for audiences of all ages in English and French, and she is also fluent in Spanish. Several of her plays have been produced locally, and Maria believes in the power of stories to transcend differences, instruct, and entertain. Please welcome Maria Crooks.
Hello, everyone. Tonight I'm going to focus my presentation on Caribbean stories, characters in those folk tales, and superstitions. Storytelling and superstitions are huge in the Caribbean culture. Storytelling, the tradition of storytelling arrived in the Caribbean directly from Africa when our forefathers or ancestors were trafficked from Africa to the Caribbean, going back as far as the 15th century. And these people brought with them their customs, their stories, their beliefs, and these stories and beliefs and customs have been transferred from generation to generation until today. Storytelling is so important and forms such a cultural mosaic in the Caribbean that some storytellers have become icons and are venerated for their storytelling. People such as Mark Matthews of Guyana or Alfred Cragnell of Barbados, the Ricardo Keynes Douglas and his brother Paul from Grenada, and of course, the inimitable Louise Bennett Coverley, who is affectionately known as Miss Lou from Jamaica. She was revered and loved throughout the island and throughout the Caribbean as well. She was the first personality of note who chose to write and to tell her stories in local vernacular, patois, rather than in standard English. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the characters that appear in Caribbean folk tales. The first one that I'm going to tell you about is Anansi. Now Anansi comes directly from West Africa, from Ghana, from the Ashanti tribe, and he's a little spider, although in some stories he also takes on human form. He's a tricky little spider who is very witty, very creative, and as they would say in Jamaica, Jinal. And Jinal means cunning. He's always playing tricks on people and getting away with it. Although sometimes he does get his own comeuppance. He is loved both as a villain and as a hero. And his stories are usually there usually is a moral to the stories about Brian Anstey, whether it is that you should not be foolish or you should pay attention to your parents and so forth. Now, in some parts of Jamaica, when you tell an Anansi story, at the end, to end the story, you say, Jack Madora, me no choose none. Now, I'm not absolutely sure what that is supposed to mean, but I think it means that I have not embellished the story in any way. The way that I heard it, this is how I am telling you. So, as Jamaicans would say in patois, as so me get it, as so me sell it. The other character that I want to tell you about, among the others that I'll be talking about tonight, is La Diablesse. And she is known in Trinidad, although she's also known in other Caribbean islands as well. She's a fusion of West African and French cultures. And as her name implies, she is the devil woman, the temptress, the seductress, who uses her wiles to entrap men who have the ill luck of meeting her late at night on the road. She is described as beautiful with ebony dark skin and tall and imposing and voluptuous. She is known to dress in clothing that um, bespeaks of of an era, bygone era, with long, voluminous skirts and a huge hat that covers half of her face. She is known to wait by lonely byways at night, and um, the men that come across her are so taken by her beauty and her seduction that they fail to notice that, in fact, she has one human foot and one cloven hoof. Mm-hmm. One foot is like that of a cow's. And it is said that she walks along the path with the human foot on the path, and then the cloven hoof trailing along the side of the road in the grass. And it is also said that the men who follow her up into the mountains are never seen or heard from again. Now, the next creature or the next character that I'm going to mention is the rolling calf. Now, the rolling calf used to strike terror in my little heart when I was a child. It's a nocturnal creature that is supposed to be the spirit of a dead person. As we say in Jamaica, a duppy. Ghosts are known as duppies in Jamaica. And it appears as a terrifying bull with huge horns, although apparently sometimes it can also appear as a goat. And it has huge bulging eyes that are bloodshot, and flames come from its nostrils, and it wears a huge, big iron chain around its neck. And as it goes galloping through the countryside, you hear the sound of the chain clanking and crashing through the night. Now, it is said that the only way that you can combat a rolling calf is if you have a switch made of brambles and dry sticks, and you hold it in your left hand and you hit him with this stick, and this will let him disappear. Another way to get rid of this creature is if you happen to have a mirror. And now, who doesn't have a mirror, late at night walking through the countryside? So if you happen to have a mirror, you can use that mirror and angle it in such a way that you can get the moonlight to fall on the creature. And apparently, moonlight is anathema to this creature, and it will flee and leave you alone. The next character that I want to talk about is La Supuyante, and she also comes from Trinidad. Now, during the day, she appears as a harmless creature, a harmless old woman, but at night, at night, she sheds her wrinkled skin and becomes her true self, a ball of fire. And she goes shrieking through the night in search of human blood. Mm-hmm. And it is said that she searches for human blood among the young, because that makes her strong and gives her vim and vigor. The only way that you can combat La Supuyante is if you have a bag of coarse salt, and you pour some in a plate and put it on the window, by your windowsill, or by the foot of the bed. And she is compelled to stop and count every grain of salt. And in so doing, she sometimes misses the count and she has to start all over again. And she spends the whole night counting the grains of salt and therefore cannot attack. Now, I want to talk a little bit about superstitions in the Caribbean. People in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Cuba, all over, are very, very, very religious. But that does not stop them from also being very superstitious. Now, I'm not saying that everybody believes all the superstitions in the world, but it's so much a part of the culture that it's like all encompassing. Everybody has something that they believe in. Now, for example, if your right eye is jumping in Jamaica, if your right eye has been jumping all day, it means that you're going to come across or see somebody that you haven't seen in a long time. So it wouldn't be unusual to hear somebody say, run into a long lost friend and say something like, me know say me go see somebody that me never seen a long time. Me eye was jumping all morning. On the other hand, if your left eye is jumping, it means that something bad is going to happen. So you have to keep these straight. There are a lot of superstitions around babies and children. If you pick up a newborn baby from its cot, you are supposed to fold the sheets back because to prevent a duppy, a ghost, from taking up residence in the baby's cot. If the mother of a young child or baby dies, you're supposed to pass the child over the casket twice so that the duppy does not come back to claim that child. And you're supposed to dress your baby in red to keep evil away from him. In Cuba, we have a number of, I was born in Cuba, that was where I was born, and we have a number of superstitions or beliefs or customs surrounding New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve, you're supposed to throw water outside. At the moment that 12 o'clock arrives, you're supposed to throw water outside the door and make the sign of the cross. And it's a way of getting rid of all the bad things that have happened in the past year and welcoming the new year. And my mother was, this was one of the customs that my mother would do and that my sister and I now carry on. Now, I have to tell you that in the Caribbean, it's very easy to stand outside in December and throw water out. But doing it in Calgary, in cold Calgary, it's slightly different. And sometimes the water freezes before it actually hits the ground. Or you can create a slipping hazard, which is not a great way to start the year. Another thing, another belief that comes from Cuba is that at midnight on New Year's Eve, you're supposed to eat 12 grapes in 12 seconds and make 12 wishes, and they'll come true. In Cuba, there is a religion known as Santeria, and it's a fusion of West African religion and Catholicism. During slavery, the enslaved were not allowed to worship their gods. And so they would pretend to be worshiping or praying to a Catholic saint when in fact they were praying to their orishas, which were the deities of Santeria. And one of the beliefs of Santeria is that you're supposed to feed the gods. And I remember as a child going with my parents to visit friends, and they would they would have an altar in the living room, and they would have a painting or a picture of a Catholic saint, and in front of the saint there would be a plate of food, or a candle, or a glass of water. Now, people in Cuba, Santeria is very popular in Cuba. And it's not just people of African descent that believe in Santeria. Uh, and it is said that even Fidel Castro became a believer when in 1959 he was giving a speech to commemorate his having won the revolution. And as he was standing outdoors giving his speech, a dove landed on his shoulder. And he took it as an auspicious sign that he was going to be successful. Now I have to say that I think that a dove landing on your shoulder is way more auspicious than having a fly land on your head. In Cuba, there is something known as mal de ojo, which means the evil eye, and people. It's interestingly enough, it's not a belief that comes from Africa. It's actually a belief that comes from Spain, and people in Cuba will wear amulets or bracelets to prevent the evil eye from attacking them, or they'll pin little bags of garlic on their children's underwear to keep away the evil eye. And I have to say that I remember as a child that I actually used to have one of those things pinned onto my underwear to keep the evil eye away from me. I think it worked. In Cuba, if someone overstays their welcome, or if you know that somebody is coming over who is very long-winded and doesn't leave, you can put a broom behind the door, and apparently it will make them leave. And my mother told us, my sister and I, that she had done it to someone and it worked. Whether that is true or not, I take it with a grain of salt. Now, I also heard that this is true in Jamaica as well, except that in Jamaica, you're supposed to put the broom upside down and pour some salt over it, and that will get the person to leave. In Jamaica, if a husband dies, the wife is supposed to wear red underwear, as we say in Jamaica, drawers, and also to move the bed from its normal location so that the duppy, the ghost, cannot find the bed and, you know what I mean. So, or at least I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Now, one of the last ones that I want to tell you about is in Jamaica, if you're entering your home late at night, say after midnight, you're supposed to walk in backwards to keep the evil eye from following you into your house or into somebody else's house. So if you have any Jamaican friends and you see them walking backwards like this, entering their house, it's not that they're crazy, it's that they're just trying to stop the evil, the duffies and the ghosts from entering their house. Now, I could go on all night because they're so numerous, these stories and these superstitions. But I'll stop here. But I want to so I just want to say thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed hearing about them. And I'll suggest that if you have any plans to go to the Caribbean anytime soon, it would be a good idea to maybe take a bag of horse salt with you in case you encounter the Sukuyong. Thank you.